Welcome everyone to What Do You Do with a BA in Theater, presented by Dallas Summer Musical's Education and Community Partnerships Department. My name is Seth Johnson and I'll be your host for this series. So today I wanted to continue with the trend of college readiness and show you some examples of resumes. So for us theater folk, we have about 3 different types of resumes. There's your standard work resume, which everyone in the world uses. That's the resume that you get your kind of like intro job, your muggle job, you apply for internships with. That's the one that you're going to want to really show to other individuals to see if you have everything right and tailored correctly. I suggest showing them to your teachers at your high school or your guidance counselor. Make sure that those resumes are clean and polished and ready to go. The other 2 resumes, you have your acting resume, which is going to be slightly different than your tech resume, which is the 3rd one. So if you're a technician, stage manager, director, anything like that, your resume is going to be slightly different than an acting resume. So let's jump on into this and let me show you what a professional resume looks like. All right. So this is a professional resume. You would use this to get jobs pretty much anywhere outside of the theater realm. Sometimes you'll use them in the theater realm, but rarely. It's mainly if you're going to apply for internships and whatnot. So the first thing you want to have in any of your resumes is giant letters, your name. Your name should be the most prominent thing at the top. And then off to the side, you have your phone number. I blurred mine out. Email address right under that. And then you don't want to put your address, your full address, but you do want to put kind of like where you are in the world. So I put Dallas, Texas, because that's where I am. And then if you scroll down, right after that, I have education. So when this is an older resume, but when I was doing this, education was kind of like my focus. I was right out of college. So I knew okay, well, I don't have too much work experience, but I can show them that this is where I went to college. And this is like my GPA for that time there. And that way they could see what I was doing for those 4 years. And that way, if there's any gaps year-wise, they can kind of tell oh, okay, they're in college. There you go. So either way, you're going to want to make sure you have the university or college that you attended, where it is, what your bachelor is, and if you have any minors. If you have multiple bachelors or masters, include those as well. And then I included the GPA. That's not necessary all the time, but if you have a higher GPA, you might want to include that. And then the year you graduate at the end, if you graduated. All right, and then you have your work experience right underneath. So you put the name of the company you worked with. So for here, I have Dallas Children's Theater, where it is located, and then your position underneath. Now, these can all be formatted differently. I like to have the name of the place bolded where it is unbolded. And then under that in the next line, I put what my position was. So for here, I was a stage manager and crew head. This is also a good example of how you can take your theatrical experience and apply it to a professional resume. On the opposite side of there, I have when I worked there. So that was 2017 to the present. If you don't have the exact day, that's fine. I usually just do month, year, and then to when you are stop working there. Another thing to note is that I lined all of my dates up at the end, like the last letter or number. You could do it the other way and line it up at the beginning. I think it's cleaner this way. This may be an older edit because my lines are a little bit off. But I like to have straight lines on either side of the page. And then right underneath your job title, you have the ability to explain kind of what you did there. You don't want to get too in depth here, just kind of short little blurbs of okay, what does this job entail? Especially for theater experience. So not everyone's going to know what a crew head is or a stage manager is per se. So you want to kind of highlight the key things within those positions that will make you more marketable for a standard job that you're applying for. So keywords like manage and communication are things that people are going to kind of skim through and highlight and see, okay, they have this. Reports, procedures, working independently and with groups, time management, those are kind of things that you really want to highlight through there. I do it chronologically, by the way. So like the most recent you have up here, and then it goes descending through time. You could also do kind of like, this is the most relevant to the job you're applying for, and structure it this way. The way I did it here, it kind of just like a one size fits all resume, so I don't have to keep changing it when I'm applying for different jobs. Because when you do start out, you sometimes have to apply for a lot of different Muggle jobs just to get your foot in the door, pay your rent while you're still working in the theater at night. So the next, I have a bakery that I worked at, and just put some of the different things I did there. You want to kind of make it sound a little bit fancier than it actually is, like customer service skills instead of just like I sold pastries. And then you keep going throughout there. Keep it short, one sentence. Doesn't even have to be a complete sentence, but just make sure that you are being consistent. So if you have like an incomplete sentence here that's just like a bullet point of what you've done, you don't want to have like a full sentence right underneath, like I did this, this, and this, and blah, 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 period. Consistency is the key to resumes. Consistency, clarity, and just if it is honestly legible, easy to read. So all of that there. Then after your work experience, I put activities. So a lot of times when you're right out of high school, right out of college, you're not going to have tons of work experience, and that's okay. But you can definitely put different things in your resume to fill it out. So it's not just like a one pager or one line thing and then empty space. You really want to get rid of as much empty space as possible with staying within one page. I feel like for Muggle job experience wise, you can go over a page, but I think a simple clean page is the way to go. Single page, and then that way you can have your cover letter on top. Depending on what job you're applying for, sometimes they ask for that cover letter. And then that way it's just a single sheet. They see it, great, move on. So I put activities. Alpha Psi Omega is a theater fraternity that most universities have if they have a theater program. It's not like your standard fraternity. It's an academic one. So for you in high school, you can put the different clubs and organizations you're a part of. You can put your position. So like I was a president, and I put through these dates and kind of just a little bit of what that entails. If you had other things you want to put there, you can definitely put that. If you're involved in sports, definitely put those things there. Try to fill out that as much as possible. Also, make sure you're not lying on your resume, because they'll find out. It kind of seems a little innocent at first, like, oh, well, like, I'm just going to put under my special skills that I can drive a forklift or something like that. But then it comes times like, oh, you drive a forklift in an interview and they want you to talk about that. And then you're just like deer in headlights. So make sure you're staying honest. After your activities, I put special skills. And I kind of put the most pertinent skills to the job I'm applying for at the beginning, and then work my way down. So this is kind of a way that you can manipulate some of your theatrical skills into some skills that will benefit you in an office situation or just a regular kind of normal job situation. So Microsoft Offices, the Office suites, make sure you just have a general advanced knowledge of that, really, general or advanced knowledge of it. I put communications, since that's a strong skill for most of us within the theater world. We can communicate easily with people. Secretarial procedures, because I was a stage manager, I knew how to organize. This is my dog, Salvador Doggy. I knew how to organize different paperworks, things like that. I put leadership as a director, leadership in organization, something that follows hand in hand. And then you can just kind of build downwards. I even put memorization. So if you're an actor and you can memorize things very easily, put that down. Team building or teamwork, that you work in an ensemble. Those are some important things that directly translate from your theatrical experience into your job experience. So this is your professional resume. Of course, these all look different. So this is just one way you can do it. It's not like this is the only template you can use. You can definitely look online for different kind of formats. Just remember, you want it clean, concise, and easy to read. Don't overfill it in a way where it's like you have to use like 0.8 font. I use Times New Roman 10 font. You can use 10 or 12. Don't make it too big where it's like obvious that you're trying to like fill up the space, but definitely kind of make sure you have clean lines and you are filling up your page to the best of your ability. You can even increase your name a little bit if you need to, but not necessary. All right, so now we're going to look at your acting resume. Here we go. Okay. So this is your acting resume. So similar to your professional resume, you have your name at the very top. That is going to be the first thing they see. You want to make sure it really stands out. Then I put my phone number on this side and my email on the opposite side, just so it's a little bit of symmetry there. I put equity membership candidate. So if you don't know what that is, that's the EMC program. That is one of the ways that you can get your equity card, which is an actors union. That just gives you some more safety when you're working. Union pay is at a higher rate, and then you also get weekly pay for being in the union. It's difficult to get into, and there's a lot of different kind of nuances to it. My advice would be to, one, read the equity handbook, which is very boring, so take it in small chunks to find out kind of more about what it is, and then also talk to somebody. Either talk to a teacher or send us an email. I'll definitely talk to you about equity till the cows come home, because as a stage manager especially, you have to know that rule book very well, because a lot of your job is to make sure you stay towards equity standards if you're working in an equity house, which is the ultimate kind of like where you want to be as a technician and an actor. You want to eventually get to those equity houses because they'll just pay you more money. And if you want to make a living as a theater artist, that's kind of the goal. All your Broadway houses are going to be equity houses. And then under here, you have your kind of general descriptions. Of course, you're going to have your resume, your headshot on the back of this, but it's important to have your height, weight, eye colors, and hair color. Make sure that is current too. Like if you have brown hair listed, but then you dyed it platinum kind of thing, make sure you're changing that. And then we have, so since it's an acting resume, your acting experience obviously goes first. I do this with show title first, and then your next column, I do the role that you played. And then the next column, I put the director. And then the final column, I put where it took place. So coming out of high school, your resume is going to have a lot of high school experience, which is great. As soon as you get into college, your next job should be to try to get rid of as much as that high school experience as possible, so that when you graduate, you are just having either college and up experience listed there. Because after college, professionals aren't going to want to see any high school experience. It just kind of is a little silly when somebody gets a resume and it's just high school experience when you're out of college. So just make sure you're working to get as much non-high school experience on your resume. I think the most important part of this section, I mean, other than the shows are great. A lot of, especially if it's like a well-known show like Life Spirit, Mackinac, like those are key name shows there. But something that people sometimes leave off that I think is really important is the director of the show. As whenever you can put names and like name drop people, the better. Name recognition is something that casting directors use a lot to kind of decide like what they want to do with the person auditioning. They can be like, oh, well, I've worked with Michael Greenwald. I'm going to call him up and see how it is to work with this guy. And that's kind of just it helps your odds a little bit more. It's not a make or break thing, but it's definitely good to have there as a good reference tool. Also good to have the company that you worked for. So I have a lot of Texas A&M. That's where I went to school. That's where I have all my acting experience from. Somebody else who is an Aggie in the future is going to see that. And if they've been to their program before, or if they just have those connections, they're going to be like, oh, I've worked there. I can also call this theater and see what the deal is there. So that's good to have there. Since my acting experience isn't really that much, what you can do next is add, if you have any technical experience, so I have directing experience, I put that there so people know like, oh, okay, so he's trying to shift from an actor to a director. I even have my stage management experience, my tech experience. After that, I have my education experience on here. That's going to be important for you all, especially if you like are just graduating high school. You want to make sure that they know kind of like, oh, okay, he's just out of high school, or they're just out of high school. Once you graduate college, then it'll be the same thing there. After that, I have workshops, which is a really important section because workshops show that like you're actively learning and progressing within your skills. And that way they can also see kind of what kind of training you've been up to. So I list master classes, which we have tons of master classes available for you with Dallas Summer Musicals, especially if you are a part of our High School Musical Theater Award. So please take advantage of those. You get pretty much one a month throughout your high school schedule with DSM. You can list all of those in your resume. Stage combat, that's something that's very like universal. That's something that you kind of want to have up there on your workshop list if you have it. Remember, anything on your resume you should be expected to do like on the spot. So I have stage combat experience because I know the basics of stage combat, how to do a slap, how to make that fake noise kind of thing. So don't put it unless you know how to do it and know how to do it like on the spot. More workshops here. I like to include the name of the person who led the workshop, because usually if they are leading workshops, they're going to be a person that people know of, like Anne Bogart. She is basically the end-all be-all of viewpoints. So anyone who has studied viewpoints know that like, oh, this person took a class with Anne Bogart. That's incredible. I want to work with this person. Then you have special skills right here. You're going to want to list your special skills as they kind of pertain. So for acting, I like to put stage combat. Stage makeup can probably go a little closer to here too. I have my design stuff listed there, which isn't super pertinent to my special skills as an actor, but it kind of just helps fill up that resume a little bit more. If you know any accents that you can do well on the spot, list those first. If you play any instruments, list those. If you can do anything special, like, I don't know, burp the alphabet, just an example, definitely put that too. I also like to hide not like a funny, but like kind of like a unique skill that you have. I might have taken it off already, but I know I had like cooking or baking under there. I know people who have barista experience put that they were a barista. People love coffee. So that's something that's a fun thing to know. But just remember, if you have it on there, you might be asked to do it in the audition room. So careful there. And then references, which is another very, very important thing to have on your resume. Just some key people that you've worked with that if they were called can vouch for you. Make sure that they know that they are on your resume. The worst thing is if somebody gets a call that they're not expecting and it's like, hey, do you know about this person? And if they're not really aware that they're going to get a call, like you never know what's going to go down there. So just kind of make sure that your references are aware of the fact that you're on their resume. It also makes them feel good, makes them feel a little bit important too. What their title is, their phone number or email address, their main way to contact them. Since I informed all of these people that they might be contacted, I put their number. Usually emails would just be sufficient too. And then where they worked. So this is your full resume. For this, it's very important not to go over a page. And remember that when you're doing this, format it so that it is 8 by 10. Resumes in the theater world are not standard size. They're not just regular printer paper. I don't know why, but you have to cut them to 8 by 10. When you send them to the printers, if you go to a place where you can get like better quality paper, sometimes they can do it for you, cut it 8 by 10. If not, then there's usually like one of those industrial cutters that you can go ahead and measure and cut 8 by 10. Make sure you're using clean lines. Don't use scissors unless you have like a very, very sturdy hand, because you don't want to see those like jagged scissory cuts everywhere. And make sure your margins are equal too. So it's not like a huge margin over here and then a tiny one over here because you need 8 by 10 and you didn't measure it before. Remember, clean, concise. You want to make sure everything is uniform. That's going to be really important, especially right out of high school. Not a lot of people know that with your resumes. So they'll have abnormally large resumes because they don't know about the 8 by 10 rule. That's going to put you ahead of the game if you have that. I know some actors I work with have their miniature version of their headshot up here in the corner. I think that's a great idea so people can know without having to flip back and forth like what you look like. Because on your resume, in the back of it, you're going to have to staple an 8 by 10 color copy of your headshot. Color or black and white, depending on what you're going for. I think color is better for the most part, because that way they can just see like eye color, hair color, whatnot. When you're attaching your resume, you don't want to like tape it or glue it. You want to staple all 4 corners. The reason why you staple it is because that way it's securely attached, but they can also rip it apart and have each one on either side and be able to see your face while looking at your resume. Don't print it on the back. That's super annoying. And also don't paper clip it because odds are the casting director is going to lose one or either your resume or your headshot. It's happened in every audition room I've ever been in, and I've been in many audition rooms. So you're going to really want to make sure you staple those 4 corners. So this is one example of how your resume would look. Now we're going to look at a tech resume, which is similar, but has its differences here. So name, obviously there, and then you have your title right under that. So for my tech experience, what I do is I have a resume tailored for stage management, directing, and design. They're all separate resumes. They basically have the same information, but it's you're listed differently in the top. So this is my stage manager resume. My director one has director on top there. I think it's better to have those individual tailored resumes instead of having like stage manager / director / designer, because that way it looks like you are more focused in on that avenue that you're applying for. I have equity membership candidacy program here because stage managers work under the same union as actors, which is kind of weird, but something you need to know. Most of the time, if you are a stage manager working at an equity house, actually all the time, you will be working under an equity contract. Stage managers always have to have that contract. But know that if you work in Texas, we are a right to work state, so you don't have to take your union card when you're offered that contract. It's very, very nuanced. Remember, talk to us if you have more questions on that. Phone number and email address, those are, how you're going to be contacted if you get the job. Then I have my stage manager experience Here it's a little bit different. Still have the title of the show. Instead of your role, I mean, you put your role, so your position, I guess, within the crew. So I have stage management first, and I have assistant stage manager after that, deck crew head, different things like that. Then here you can either do a mix of, so for the shows I stage manage, I put my director name here. So I put director to symbolize who it is and then their name. For the shows I assistant stage manage, instead of director, I put the stage manager's name. That way, if you are applying to be an assistant stage manager, the stage manager who's looking over your resume can contact the stage manager you work with and see kind of how you work, basically. And then the theater you worked with, you worked at right next to that. After stage management experience, I put directing experience. I feel like directing is closer to stage management than my technical design experience, so I put that there. That way I kind of know a little bit of the nuances about directing. Make sure they're all lined up there. And then I put my technical experience. You can flip those back and forth depending on your strong suit. What kind of technician you are, what kind of designer you are, who you worked with, where you worked. Then I have education experience after that, special skills. And if you see, my special skills are laid out differently than it is my acting resume. So I have my design experience, my carpentry experience, things like that listed here. Fire extinguisher trained is something that's good. So if you have training like that, or if you have OSHA training, or if you have like food handler's license kind of thing, put that on there too. If you are working outside of Texas, put your Texas driver's license, especially like if you are working in New York. Not a lot of people have driver's licenses in New York, so that is something that people will want to know. And then your references again. And you can always switch up the order of your references. So if you're using an acting resume, you might want to put your different directors first. For my tech resume here, I put like kind of the producers first. I also put just who I worked with most recently kind of thing. And then what their position is here. Yeah. So that is your tech resume. Remember, you can tailor it and make a special version for each area of the technical world that you work in. If you're a designer, remember that you will also have a portfolio. That's a whole other series, but if you're confused on how you can set up your portfolio, let us know, send us an email. We're happy to help with that too. But those are little things that are going to set you apart from your other peers who are going into college. Not only in the theater world, but in the academic world too. You get a little bit ahead. I know a lot of places don't go in depth on how to create a resume correctly. So this is going to just help advance your career a little bit further. You always want to stay a little bit ahead of the game when you're in the career world. And that it applies to in and out of theater. You just want to make sure you're constantly learning, constantly progressing forward, and you have stuff that sets you apart from the crowd. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, obviously send us an email. Dallas Summer Musicals is a resource for you, and we're happy to help you. So just let us know, and we will get back to you as soon as possible, really. Stay safe, wash your hands, and have a wonderful day.